Hey, what's up, viewer? Welcome back to the Nebulous Live Development Creation Series. This is Day 14, Hour 2, kind of Hour 2.5, since I cut about a half hour of work to go run an errand for my sister. But right now we're looking at Hour 2, and actually I got a pretty quick start on it after the previous hour. In the last video, I was finding myself struggling against Cinemachine yet again. It's been happening for the past few videos, and regardless of how many times I read the documentation, I can never seem to get it to bend to my will. I understand what Cinemachine is capable of, and I understand what it is supposed to provide you as a tool, but every time I go to actually implement somehow, it never yields the behavior I desire. And that makes me, to be completely honest, it makes me a little bit infuriated and emotional and annoyed and complainative and all of those kind of words, because there's a way I can just write a couple lines of code and get exactly what I want to happen. So when I have that option on the table and I'm struggling for sometimes up to hours just to study Cinemachine, just to try to set up Cinemachine, understand Cinemachine, work through the quirks of Cinemachine, it gets old. And it was the same thing that was slowing me down like the last week or two, trying to figure out some way to use like volumetric clouds to do the galaxy arms and stuff. But I understand that there's a way to do it with code right at my fingertips. Trying to reach for Unity's built-in stuff really gets old. That's very disappointing, because Unity, it's basically the only strength it has over all of the other engines, and making your own engine is its strength is supposed to be that it provides you these tools. But in reality, I keep finding that these tools get in the way often. When certain coding approaches can solve the problem if you're willing to think about it a little bit. So for that reason, I've decided that I'm just going to kick Cinemachine out for now. It is wasting my time. I am getting better with using it. It does do some things well. But when it starts to rub me the wrong way like this, it's time to go. So I apologize for all of you who are Cinemachine fans or whatever, but it wasn't working out, okay? So now I'm just gonna write a couple lines of code and get the exact behavior I want and understand how to manipulate it and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to continue where I left off, which was coding a custom camera position to Lerp2. Whenever the player decides to enter a selected nebula. So when they've selected a nebula, which is what this is insinuating, it's not null, and it's not the galaxy, so the only other thing it can be is a nebula. So then we switch to nebula view actions. We turn on the active nebula object, which is probably what's going to be what activates the actual stars in the nebula. Activates or generates the first time. We have player data. Making sure that the shader on the nebula from the outside is deactivated as the active selection, and then we're setting the active selection to be null, so the player can select a new object. But more specifically, so the code doesn't think that the active selection is still in play, which it isn't yet at this point. Okay, so once that's happened, the next thing that needs to happen is I need to take the position of the selected nebula which is actually player data current active selection .transform.position, or actually okay, transform.local scale, and we basically, or no, hold on, we actually are just taking its position. So we're taking its position and we are subtracting from that position vector3.back times the player data current active selection transform.local scale .z times divided by 2 float, and that is going to essentially move it exactly to the border of the nebula. I'm not going to worry about nuance right now. Can't afford it. Can't afford to worry about nuance. Going for prototype. So I'm not going to worry about any instance where the player could be at a different rotation around the nebula. In that instance, I would have to be a little bit more specific using the camera vector, but for now I'm just going to hard code it to always be essentially the back of the nebula, assuming the negative z axis is the back. I also need a float for camera position buffer, basically. And that is going to multiply the final position by some value. And that will allow the that is more or less going to, hold on, give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm back. I'm getting a weird smell. I'm not sure. I'm trying to investigate what that smell might be. I don't think the dog's still here. I don't know if I don't see a mess anywhere. Whatever. I'll check on it later. Okay. It might just be somebody doing something upstairs too. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so I'm trying to make sure I understand conceptually how this buffer works. So the idea is that this position is always going to be just a little bit inside of the nebula, is the idea. And I'm actually kind of getting an idea where the there's gonna be some nuance. There's like a million ways it could happen, so more or less the idea is that I just make the camera position buffer like 5%, and it will be it'll be at like a 95% of the size of the thing. So it'll be like 5% inside of the nebula, basically. Whereas without the buffer, it will just be exactly on the end of the nebula. Okay, so it's all multiplication and division, so the central position minus back times half of the z-scale times a percentage. So like if I did 0.05, it should make it 10%. Okay. And from here, we can now set the connect the selection to null. And then here's the tricky part, because I'm trying to be fancy and like lerp it, but lerping it is going to require an update loop. So I guess I could just say, okay. If I go up here and I say vector3 new camera position, and then new camera position is assigned here, then essentially I have to come in here and say update. And I have to make a boolean, so bool camera lerp complete. False. Oh. True. And then once it gets in here, I have to say camera lerp complete equals false. And then if camera lerp complete is not equal to true, and there's probably a better way to do this with an action or something. So if camera lerp is complete is not equal to true, then we have to say like camera.main.transform.position equals mathf.lerp, whoops, vector3.lerp. And we have to come up here and say vector3 starting camera position transform that position, and we're going to lerp from starting camera position to new camera position. And we have to come up with an iterator. So we have to set a public float let's say camera transition time. Then we come down here and we have to make a int called iterator. This starts at 0. And basically, let's come in here and say iterator plus equals time.delta time. Oh, and I guess this might as well be a float then. And then like iterator needs to go in here. This isn't exactly correct though, because I also have to I'm kind of forgetting how to do this, but I have to have like a t value that or like, hold on. What did I get up here? Camera transition time. So I have to use camera transition time. And I have to say so this is like 4 seconds. I have to like basically say if iterator is greater than camera transition time, then more or less, oops, camera lerp complete equals true. And I feel like I'm missing one thing, which is that it's gonna like approach camera transition time, basically. So for some reason I'm getting this idea to do like a 1 minus something. And approach it like that. But this is basically how it's supposed to work. Okay, so I'm going to give this a shot here. And this will allow me to avoid using any like manual camera positions. And it will just move the camera to that position, ideally. And before I enter play mode, I actually should... Oh crap, you know what? I forgot to reset my editor before I started this video. Okay, so... Before I do that, let's close this and let's Try to remember where this is at. So that was like 5%, and it normalizes to like 10% because it's a radius. And then the transition time, let's just make it like 4 seconds. And ideally, it should pick its position and transition the camera. Oh, you know what I didn't do though? I just remembered I forgot to do something. I forgot to... Oh, no, I didn't forget. Okay. Alright, I guess we'll just have to give this a shot. I feel like it might jank out a little bit at the end. This is also why giving the player panning and zooming ability makes this kind of irrelevant, because they can just micro adjust their own camera. And it doesn't have to be super specific, so... Alright, let's give this a shot. So if I select this nebula and I hold control and zoom in, nothing happens. Okay, so this was happening earlier and I don't know why, so we are going to have to use our handy dandy debugger to figure out why. I might as well set the debugger up here to figure out why we aren't getting our action map to think it's working correctly. Because it was working fine earlier, or a week or two ago. It was basically working. So the functionality should be there. Let me see why it's throwing a fit here. Oh, and I actually just saw on out of the corner of my eye my OBS Studios just gave me a encoder overloaded thing, so I might just be running out of desktop memory, which is why this is compiling really slow. Man, so I need to remember after this video to definitely restart the editor and not forget. Alright, so now that we're in here, into play mode. Alright, so... Oh, you know what, though? I screwed this up. I only want it to fire if I've fired the event properly. My bad. Oh, and good, it looks like we just reconnected it, good. So let's give this another shot here. So if I click on this, hold the control and zoom forward, it looks like it's just not activating. So let me make sure it's connected. It has the action map set up. It is over here. Player input. Oh, okay. So the default map needs to be rechanged to Galaxy View is the problem. Most likely. So let's give this another shot. If we select this, hold control and zoom in, we are still not getting the desired behavior. Okay, so let's restart this and restart this also. So I switched it to Galaxy View. Let me see here. Galaxy View, dive into selected nebula from Galaxy View. This was all working correctly earlier. Alright, so we're getting, let's see. Action. Galaxy View, dive into selected thing, okay. I mean, it looks like it found the action. What can I say? It's not being weird and make him use right control or something, is it? Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Is player data actually setting up a Nebula clone? It is. And it's the proper one. So this Nebula clone is, in fact, the active selection. So active selection is not default or null, and it's not named Galaxy. I've changed the default map of the player input to Galaxy View. Is this messed up? It's not. Okay, so I guess for quick testing's sake, if I'm inside of the active star system, and I hold control, and I zoom out, it's working, right? If I do it again, it's active nebula, which broke something this time, but enter star system from star cluster. If I do it one more time, I should go to the Galaxy View, and I do. And then if I... Okay, that time it worked, basically. Well, shoot. Okay, so... Let's see here. Why is this happening? Oh, I think I maybe know why. I think I had it set up to, like, initialize the stuff in the active star view, maybe? So I think I just messed up an initialization, but we actually saw there a little bit that the we basically saw the Lerp worked. So the Lerp worked correctly, and it was doing one thing wrong. It was re-hovering incorrectly, but that can be fixed. It was more or less zooming in properly, though. Alright, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking this over a little bit. Alright, so let's see here. I'm going to take a look in here. I think there's probably some kind of initialization. No, I guess not. Alright, so dang. I mean, it shouldn't be hassling me once again. We're looking at pretty straightforward behavior. And it was even working. My best guess is still that it's not. My best guess is that somewhere it is overwriting the active. Oh, no, that's not it. Somewhere it's just manually setting the action. So let me take a look here. Okay, so that's just switching the current action map, and what I need to do is more or less switch this back to Galaxy View. basically. Although I'm trying to consider a smart way to not have this problem occur again. Otherwise it's going to get nested in here. Well, whatever. I'll just do it anyway. Player input. Switch current action map to galaxy view. And this will make sure that even after doing this, we'll have the correct starting one set up. Alright, so let's give this another shot here. And let's see, so if I do this, all right, so we're zooming in, I can, and it's giving me an issue here. I'm not exactly, well, I know basically why. It's because I'm not using the star cluster anymore. That being said, though, oh. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm milling over my head. I'm having half a mind to yank the input system because I can avoid a lot of these issues by just manually calling input from the code wherever I need to. I'm going to leave the star cluster view because I don't know yet if I'm going to actually completely remove the star cluster idea, but I basically just have to change basically okay, and I'm just going to make a new component for it while I'm at it.
There's a chocolate shake for you.
Okay. Hear that? My mom got me a chocolate shake. How awesome is that? Alright, so I'm going to call this enter selected star system from Nebula view. And we're practically just going to copy paste star cluster to star system, basically. So enter star system from star cluster, enter star system from Nebula. So we're going to grab this code here, place it in here. It's going to complain that we don't have the input system set up, so let's use Unity Engine input system. We also need to find the Nebula view action map. And we're looking to dive into active star system view from Nebula view, basically. And it's basically going to do everything else the same. And yeah, switch to star system view. And this just happens from the Nebula. And then we don't want this going on because we're manually doing that. And we also have to wait for the Argus compilation. Which I think might just be because I'm having some memory concerns. Okay, so the galaxy needs to have interselected nebula from galaxy view. Active nebula needs to remove this and say enter selected star system from Nebula. And I've got to populate all the values. And then enter the star system from the Nebula. And this actually might have to get a little bit more specific because, excuse me. I don't exactly want to turn off the nebula. The objects kind of still are supposed to exist. Star system view is correct. Everything else is basically correct. I suppose the main thing now is if I'm in a star system, oops. Okay, so now if I'm in a star system, or actually let me see here. Yeah, okay. I exit nebula to galaxy, I think that's all still correct. That's all correct. If I'm in the if I'm in an active star system, we don't want to exit to the star cluster, we want to exit to the nebula. Exit star system to star cluster, not quite. So exit star system to nebula view. And it's basically exit, it's basically this exact same code here. Once again, whoops, okay, so opened up the wrong script here, apparently. We're exiting star system to Nebula. Place all this in here. Include the correct includes. Active star cluster is no longer this, it's active nebula. And we aren't deactivating it anymore, kind of, because I'm trying to maybe keep it a little bit physically based. This is now nebula view. Oh wait, yeah, this is now nebula view. Not changing the position like that anymore. So we're using the star system, find action, climb to active nebula view. And let's double check that it's spelled correctly. So I'm in the star system, climb to active, oh, I'm gonna have to tweak these also to match the names, properly match the names. Okay, so I can very simply just basically copy this. Climb to active nebula view from star system view. And just rename this to this. And then same degree, I need to make sure I come in here and change just double check that that's correct. Enter selected star system. Dive into active star system view from nebula view. Dive into, wait, what? Active star system view. Way off here. Active star system view from nebula view. Okay, so I think those are the two main changes. And while I'm thinking about it, let me go back to that. Where was that at? Player clicks selection button. Is this actually where I had that done? Yeah. I'm gonna yank this part out here. Maybe in the future I can change it up a little bit to like maybe there'll be a fourth tier, but there's kind of a fourth tier already with planets. Okay, so let's see here. I guess we'll just have to see if it works now. So let's give it a shot. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. I think I might have forgotten one other thing. Which is that active star system needs... Yes, okay, so I forgot one thing. This needs to actually be active nebula object. But I'm actually not doing this anymore, am I? Oh, wait. I'll have to see what happens. Okay, so let's give it a shot then. Oh, it's not going to work completely because I don't have the camera zooming code set up for stars, but I think I might have reworked it enough to give it a shot here, so let's see what happens. Alright, so if I select this bad boy, hold control and zoom in, or zooming in, I need to fix it so it doesn't hover like that. And now I'm technically in the active nebula, but I don't have a selection anywhere. If I hold control and zoom, it doesn't do anything, but if I zoom out, it technically zoomed out, but I need to do something. I need to, more or less, add a value to player data. And that value is actually this, where did it go? In your default camera position. I'm going to change this to say default galaxy camera position. And from here, I'm going to, whoops, my bad. I'm going to, I really broke a bunch of stuff here. Oh. Yeah. Gonna have to run through here and yank all this. Okay, so now that I've done all that, those errors aren't going to emerge anymore. And whenever the galaxy orients the camera, I'm going to have to say game object dot find object of type player data, which is faster than find by string, because that checks every object in the hierarchy by name and matches the name, whereas find object of type looks for a archetype that contains player data, and there's only one in the entire existence of the game, so it like automatically knows how to find exactly the player data, basically. So it's not very inefficient as far as I can tell. And was this for hierarchy or something? Yeah, okay. Oh, include inactive. Maybe. But we have to find the player data, and then we have to grab the default galaxy camera position and set it equal to camera.main.transform.position. And this is going to allow us to lerp back to It's going to allow the camera to lerp out of the nebula, back to where the camera was at. Man, this puppy is out. He's not supposed to be inside, so I'm gonna have to kick him back outside here pretty soon. Know that mom's home, but he's been a good boy. I need to go look in the bathroom and see if he pooped in there, but let's hope not. Let's hope not. Let's hope this compiling can get better so you don't have to hear me talk about my dog's poop and stuff. Okay. So at this point we are entering the nebula, and essentially what I had to do was run this update thing here to do the lerp. Which there's a more sophisticated way to use an action type or a delegate to, like, on this condition somewhere else, dynamically add or remove the action. But for now I'm just going to do this because I don't feel like building an action. Sometimes building in the actions creates problems. I'm not going to do it right now. Alright, so enter a selected nebula from galaxy view. Exit selected nebula to galaxy view. And in here I just have to more or less bring these things in to the mix. And they're all basically the same, which is where I guess they get the this leaves it open to being fine-tuned. But the other thing I'm gonna have to do is come down here and whoops, let me clear this out here. And I might as well just freaking come over here and grab the whole thing. So now we're looking at almost the same thing, but we have to do something a little different. And we have to actually, we don't have to have a buffer in this instance. And I'm not even seeing it use a buffer. Where's that? Oh, and then the new camera position was set up here, so all this camera stuff basically has to go in here. Oops, and I tweaked that, didn't I? We don't have this anymore, and we actually don't have see, I don't even think we even have to do this, so we don't need new camera position. We have starting camera position. And I'm setting it here because it's a little more efficient in the update loop, I suppose. But in this instance, we are actually saying starting camera position to, and we're just coming in here and saying player data default galaxy camera position. And there's a way to make this even more specific where the position can actually be the last place the player had the camera. But once again, nuance. So I'm going to dodge on the nuance for now. And this is basically just going to lerp it backwards. And then I know I changed this for some reason. So let me see here. Galaxy objects. Okay, so when I enter the... I didn't turn off the galaxy object. By turning off the active nebula, more or less, it reduces rendering on whatever's inside the nebula. So I guess I'll just leave that for now, but it might change. and on an exit, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, and actually, that was actually the full hour of the video, so, alright. Still grinding away here. I'm tweaking this system to zoom in and out. I ditched Cinemachine. There's times where I could maybe make it work, but I don't feel like messing with it right now. There are some cases where if it's doing exactly one thing, it can basically work correctly. But like a lot of those things can just be done with like a line of code, so I'm in debate on it, to be honest with you. But for this video, as you saw, like I spent like a lot to most of the last video just barely trying to make lerping in and out work, which I made work in like 20 minutes in this video. So that's, I hope you understand why I'm complaintive about that and why I'm justifying not using it. Alright, so in this video, actually real quick, before I exit this, I'm going to test the oh wait, hold on. I'm going to test the in and out functionality from the Galaxy to Nebula and Nebula to Galaxy just to make sure it works. Which I know is running this video up a smidgen, but and what was the transition time? Like 4 seconds. And I don't need a position buffer because it's leaving, so. Alright, so let's see. If I select a nebula and I zoom in, whoops. Alright, so there's a bug, I have to fix it. I'll fix it in the next video. So thank you very much for watching up to this point. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.